Hello learners, in this video we are going to talk about methods of resolving conflicts through third party negotiation. What's third party negotiation? So far we have discussed about collective bargaining or various forms of bargaining as the direct negotiation. We've also seen that sometimes situations are so complex and tedious that individuals or groups representatives are unable to resolve their differences through bargaining or direct negotiations. Then the ultimate solution can bring agreement, which can bring agreement and coherence, is a third party negotiation. There are three basic third party roles which are prevalent to reach negotiations. These are the roles of a mediator, arbitrator, and conciliator. This is the diagrammatic representation of third party roles. On the top we can see mediators, followed by arbitrators and conciliators. Now who's a mediator? This is a third person not associated with any of the concerned parties who facilitates negotiation using his ability of persuasion, suggestion, reasoning, suggesting alternatives, etc. Mediators are mostly used in labor management negotiation and in civil court disputes. They are very effective and impressive and highly recommended for negotiations. Their success rate is about 60% with 75% negotiator satisfaction. According to the US Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, mediation gives the parties the opportunity to discuss the issues raised in the charge, clear up misunderstandings, determine the underlying interests or concerns, find areas of agreement, and ultimately to incorporate those areas of agreements into resolutions. A mediator does not resolve the charge or impose a decision on the parties. Instead, the mediator helps the parties to agree on a mutually acceptable resolution. The mediation process is strictly confidential as per the US Equal Employment Opportunity Commission 2007. Mediators are advantageous as they help both the party to develop their solutions, resolve issues that are significant for both the parties, and sometimes mediators solve the conflict even if no resolution is achieved. Now there are few disadvantages of having mediators also, which are like when the conflict intensity is not very high, then the role of a mediator may not be helpful. This type of method is useful for negotiation when moderate level of conflict is there. So you have to be very careful about involving mediators, looking at the flavor of the conflict. At the same time, perception of the mediator plays an important role in finding solutions. This was mentioned by me in the previous videos that there are certain perceptual biases that we should try and get rid of before entering into a negotiation process, which is possible through open two-way communication and seeking feedback. Now the mediator must be neutral and non-coercive to be effective. Now let's talk about who's an arbitrator. Arbitrator is a third party possessing authority to dictate an agreement. There are mainly two types of arbitrators: voluntary arbitrator, which is requested and involved into the negotiation by the parties concerned, and then there is compulsory arbitrator, which is enforced by law. Now the effectiveness and success rate of arbitrator is comparatively higher than mediators. Arbitration always results in settlement. On the other hand, its success may appear heavily on any of the disputed parties. As the decision here is more enforced, the dispute may arise at a later time if any of the party is left dissatisfied. It is common to see mediation followed by arbitration. An alternative technique is to follow the arbitration with mediation. That is, we can use a blended approach of involving arbitration approach with mediation in order to arrive at an optimum solution. Now, if we use arbitration with mediation, that is a mixed methods approach, the format of this conflict resolution approach is to have both sides formally making their cases before an arbitrator. The arbitrator then makes a decision and places it in a sealed envelope. Following this, the two parties work through mediation. If they are unable to reach an agreement on their own, the arbitration decision becomes binding. Researchers using this technique found that it led to voluntary agreements between the two parties. Now, after talking about a mediator and an arbitrator, let's talk about a conciliator. A conciliator is a trusted third party providing informal communication link between the negotiator and the opponent. Robert Duvall made this role famous in his film Godfather. Mediation and conciliation overlap each other in a great deal, therefore, it is difficult to compare success of each of these strategies. Practically, conciliator not merely works as a communication channel, they also find facts, decode messages, seek necessary information, and try to persuade disputants to reach on a consensus. Now, when we talk about conflict resolution, it is pertinent to talk about the Gandhian approach to conflict resolution and integration, which is a part of the Unit 16 on negotiation. Let's study that in detail. Several social activists and Nobel Prize winners are deeply influenced by the Gandhi's view of practicing major public conflicts and conflict theories. Gandhi's approach of satyagraha during independence movements has been seen as a Gandhian approach to conflict resolution. Humanistic values as a source of conflict and negotiation were majorly adopted by Gandhi. His writings presented three levels of norms that were derived from Indian traditional wisdom. Three levels of norms, as postulated by Mahatma Gandhi, include the first level of norm talking about goals and conflicts, the second level of the norm talking about conflict struggle and the process of it, and the third level of the norm talking about conflict resolution and integration. Now, talking about first level of norms in detail, the first level of norms relates to goals and conflicts, which talks about act now, here for your own group goals and out of conviction. Define the conflict well by stating goals clearly. Try to understand the opponent's goals, emphasize common and compatible goals, and state the conflict relevant facts objectively. Have a positive approach to the conflict and look at it as an opportunity to meet the opponent, as an opportunity to transform the society, and as an opportunity to transform the self. The second level of norms, these norms relate to conflict struggle and process, talks about acting non-violently in conflicts, that is, not harming or hurting with words, deeds or thoughts, not damaging the property, not preferring violence to cowardice, and doing good even to the evildoer. Acting in a goal-consistent manner by being constructive, acting openly rather than secretly, not to cooperate with the evil, that is, evil structures, status and action, or those who cooperate with the evil. Being willing to sacrifice by not escaping from the punishment and by willing to die if necessary. Not polarizing the situation by distinguishing between antagonisms and antagonists, between persons and status. One should maintain contact with opponents and have empathy for their position and be flexible in defining parties and positions. Also, not to escalate the conflict, remain loyal, do not provide the opponent, do not allow oneself to be provoked, and do not humiliate and do not allow oneself to be humiliated. Third and the final level of norms relating to conflict resolution. First one being resolving conflicts by seeking negotiation, positive social transformation, and the transformation of both the self and the opponent. Insisting on essentials rather than non-essentials, that is, not trading with essentials and be willing to compromise on non-essentials. Seeing oneself as fallible, admitting your mistakes, and maintaining consistency over time. Being generous with opponents, not exploiting their weaknesses, not judging them harder than yourself, and trusting them. Finally, aiming for conversation rather than coercion, seeking the solutions that can be accepted by both you and the opponent. Never coercing the opponent, converting the opponent into a believer of the cause, or be open to convert yourself. Now, these are some of the important points pertaining to the norms that we just discussed. The Gandhian conflict process goes well beyond conflict resolution to integration or transformation at a deeper level, the achievement of self-realization. For Mahatma, the fundamental principle was that of the unity of existence, or more immediately the unity of humans, which we call as diversity or inclusion or accessibility nowadays. People are related to each other in a way that has a transcendental nature, and a conflict should be seen as a gift, providing a rich opportunity potentially to the benefit of all and realizing a higher self.